Welcome to ECE 1000. This is your first video. Hopefully you guys are ready to dive into the course. This is a freshman level course, and in this course we'll be talking about circuit simulation and also doing some PCB, which is printed circuit board design. You'll also get an opportunity to do some soldering and some other things as well. And so let's go ahead and dive in. Now, if you're watching this video, you've already figured out how to get into the Blackboard site. And you'll see, of course, there's on my website here, I have two different courses. That's because there are two different sections for this class. However, they will be following the exact same format, the exact same schedule, and have the exact same assignments. So even if you have someone that's maybe a friend that's in section AB and you're in section AA, you could still actually, get together and, talk to each other about, the first assignment. Now, you're always supposed to turn in your own work, but you can still always collaborate and talk to each other, verify things like that. I encourage students to work together. So let's go ahead and dive into one of these. So you'll notice again, if you're watching this video, you'll have already seen this, that you come into the announcements page, and I will post up announcements. I don't know if there will be announcements every week, but there will be announcements, and it gives you some information here about the software we'll be using, and then of course the video that you are watching with the link here of Watch Me. Now, what I want to do here is go through actually the course syllabus and then also some key information and how this course is going to work, and then also just give you a brief overview of some of the topics we're going to be talking about. So the course syllabus here, well, first off, there's the syllabus cover page, which you'll see in every class. I'm not going to read through this, but you will be doing these things here. You'll be looking at the learning outcomes. You should be able to, at the end of the semester, be able to say, yeah, I either, done this or I know how to do this. And if I scroll down further, there's the actual course policies, which that's what I'm going to fire up right now is the course policies. Let me zoom in a tiny bit. First off, it just gives you, again, basics of the course itself. Gives you my name. I am the Associate Dean. Gives you my phone number. I would not recommend calling me. That's not usually the best way to get a hold of me. Emailing is the best way to get a hold of me. And then also it has my office hours, which I don't have set office hours this semester, but you can set an appointment with me. And currently you are going to contact Jennifer Orr with her email address right here. This will be changing within a couple weeks of the semester. We will be getting a new office administrator for the College of Engineering. And so when that happens, I will update everybody with their new email address. And then some policies concerning students with disabilities. So if you have a disability or you do need a special accommodation, I encourage you to go talk to the Office of Student Success, and they will be able to help you out. They're all very friendly over there. I love working with the Office of Student Success. COVID-19, hopefully COVID-19 doesn't pose us any issues this semester, but if there are any updates, you can always visit Indiana Tech's website for that. Instructor expectations, essentially, I expect you to watch my videos. And there will be a few videos that I myself don't create, but most of the videos are ones that I am actually sitting here in my office creating them. And so it's important that you watch them. They're going to discuss how to do the assignments, and they're also going to give you maybe some hints on the projects that you have to do as well. I will use Blackboard as a mean of communication. I'll show you that in more things here. Communication, emails, primary method of communication. This clearly I copied from another course. Exams, assignments, and papers will be announced via email. Not seeing and not reading your email is not a valid excuse for me. The thing that I say that needs to be changed here, as you'll see, is that we don't have exams in this course and we don't really have papers. So that's the only difference. We also do have software that is required for this course, and that's what a lot of my videos will be spending time doing, is going over the software that you'll be using in this course. Now that software is located and installed in the following computer labs in the Zollner Engineering Building: 209, 211, and 104. Now 211 is the circuits lab, the electrical engineering and computer engineering circuits lab. And so that lab is actually available to you, and there's not necessarily classes always going through there, so that's a good place to work on assignments. Now, you can also use the software via a web browser, and we recommend using Chrome if you're going to do this option. And you can log into letmein.indianatech, go to one click, and then choose the virtual labs. And I'll show you that in another video here. This option here is probably the slowest option. It does require an internet connection, but it's the slowest option as far as the software actually running. It takes some time for the software to boot up because you're running it on another computer, essentially over the internet. I take academic dishonesty seriously, and this little statement here is, of course, if it was in a person class, but the student handbook outlines definition of academic dishonesty, but includes not limited to submitting work that's not your own, copying other students' work, looking at other students' exam, or essentially looking at another student's assignment, project, essentially, and turning it in as your own. Now, I do encourage you to work together on assignments, and you can ask each other questions. You know, on the first assignment here, you might say, hey, I am confused on problem 1F. You know, do you know how to do 1F? And they could explain how to do 1F to you, and that's fine. But what you should be submitting should be your own work. Now, for the first homework assignment, it will be a little bit different just because a lot of the questions on the first question are kind of answer only, so there's not necessarily work to show. But in general, you need to be submitting your own files, your own work. Any academic dishonesty, and I've had to do this a couple times, which I hate doing it personally, but any academic dishonesty results in an F in the course, and you receive a infraction card for that as well. So assignments will be given on a regular basis. You'll turn them in electronically through Blackboard. Projects, same thing. Discussion board, most weeks we'll have discussion board, and for some reason my lovely formatting got off. This is the first time this has ever happened to me on my syllabus. Not the end of the world. I think you guys can figure it out. Grading, discussion boards are worth 20%, projects 40%, assignments worth 40% of your grade. I use just a straight grading scale, no pluses or minuses, but it is a weighted graded system, which means you can't just add up the number of points. So for instance, the first discussion board might be worth, I don't know, let's just say it's worth 5 points, and the first assignment is worth 20 points. That doesn't mean that the assignment is, weighted, 4 times as much as the discussion board because it's only 5 points versus 20 points. No, it's a weighted system. So you have to figure out what your score is on the assignments, weight it by the appropriate amount, figure out what your score is on the discussion board, weight it by the appropriate amount. Now, the good news is you don't ever have to really worry about computing it. Blackboard, I set it up so that one of the first columns in Blackboard, which is called current grade, will display what your current grade is in the class. As soon as I enter a score, it updates what your grade is based off this grading scale. So you should never really have to compute what your grade is. Now, I always have this one statement here that this is intended as a guide, and I will reserve the right to modify and supplement any changes, though, that have to be made, which I don't foresee any. I will announce, though, and post a new syllabus on Blackboard. All right, so let's close out this. Now, let's look at how this course is organized. So we have weekly folders and key information. Key information just talks a little bit about me, so you can see a lovely little picture of me. Yay, there's me again, and you can probably see me in the bottom right corner anyway. But if I go back here, the weekly folders, if I click on that, that just takes you to the folders that are here on the left side of the screen. So it's not really any different. I mean, if I click here or if I click here, I'm going to go to the same spot. So if I click on this folder here, gets me to the week overview. And each week there will be a little overview talking about what are the things you should be able to do by the end of the week. But if I had clicked on this one instead, it gets me to the exact same spot. And so you'll see here, you've got just 2 other videos besides this one to watch this week. And then there's a discussion board. And this is going to be true for discussion boards, is there's always going to be 2 parts. Part 1 is always going to be due by 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday of the given week. And then part 2 is going to be due by 11:59 p.m. on Saturday of the given week. And part 2 is responding to at least 2 other people's posts. And I want to emphasize this is going to be true for all of the posts. You need to have several sentences and a response. Just saying, I agree, or nice to meet you, or those aren't acceptable responses, and you will not receive credit for those. And so you will get marked down. And then we also have our first homework assignment here. And it's a pretty short one. Honestly, most of the assignments in here are not going to be super long. This course really is just to kind of give you an introduction to what you'll be learning as electrical engineers, and also an introduction to some of the tools that you'll be using. So this is assuming that none of us have ever done engineering notation before, and also that you've never heard of what a voltage, current, or power is. So that's kind of what we're talking about in this first week. We will move on to then some basic equations for circuits. But then moving on beyond those basic equations, we're going to finally get into doing some simulations. And so let me show you what those will look like. So I have some simulations here. This is the software package that we'll be using for our simulation. And I'll just zoom in a tiny bit. There's actually 2 circuits here. And I've already got it set up that if I just hit this play button here, that runs the simulation. And it doesn't really look like anything was done at this point, because these are very simple circuits and I need to turn on something. So if I turn this V on, it gives me the voltage at various points on the circuit. And for instance, it says that this point up here is 9 volts. Well, if we think about it, that makes sense. This here is a power supply that I'm running my thing around, and it's set to 9. So if the power supply is 9 volts, it would make sense that the top is 9 volts. Now, we will learn more about this. I don't want to go into too much detail here. I do want to show you one other simulation. This is another circuit. This is called a triangle wave generator. And so we will have some circuits that are a little bit more complex. Now, you don't need to understand the theory behind these circuits. We just need to be able to simulate them and then use some basic equations to verify whether our simulations make sense. And so if I simulate that, I'm going to now bring up a window here. So this window here, if I go back to my simulation, you'll notice here there's this little green probe. And what that is here is that's showing you, this green probe is showing you what the signal is, the voltages, and you can see, well, it's like a little triangle. We call it a triangle wave because there's a bunch of triangles there. So hence the name triangle wave generator. So those are a couple simulations, and that's what we'll kind of start at the beginning portion. But then we'll quickly move into actually something where we'll start doing actual PCB layouts. And again, those are printed circuit boards. And so we'll have one here. This is going to be one of the things we have to do, which is called creating a pad stack. So if you have to drill a hole, for instance, to mount the component, or maybe it's a surface mount component, or there's maybe you need on your board, you need a mounting hole because like if you have a motherboard, you have to mount it on the chassis of your computer case. So there's different types of holes and different types of shapes that we can make. And that's kind of one of the first things we'll be using. Then we'll be using something called making footprints. And footprints are these little rectangular shapes. They don't have to be rectangles. You can see I have like a circular shape here. But these are basically to kind of show what the physical dimensions and physical shape of the component is. If we look at the simulator here, let me go back to the simulator, we have these symbols. And these symbols, of course, mean different things, which we'll go through. And some of you already probably know what these symbols mean. But if you don't worry, we're going to go through those. but these symbols don't really give me any information about how big they are or what shape they are. And that's what these little rectangulars and squares that I'm kind of going over all show. And so we'll be creating those footprints. And then the last step is we have to create what's called a layout, which that's all these yellow and green lines here. The yellow and green lines are basically copper. It's basically where you'd have copper still remaining on the board, or areas that you have to etch out. And that's basically so you can have the circuit run properly. Now, just so you know, this circuit itself here has a little USB output here. It's a 5-volt power supply, 120 AC, so it plugs into the wall, to 5-volt DC. So it can charge a cell phone or any kind of USB device. So we might do that as one of the projects. There's some other things we might do as well. So we can actually use this then and put it in one of our machines here on campus and actually create these boards that we can then put components on and solder them. So that's kind of a quick run through or overview of the course. I know I went through all this really quickly. You don't have to worry. This is what we're going to spend our entire semester on, is going through the software and how to do the various things on this. So with that, I'll let you dive into the course. And I look forward to getting to know all of you this semester.